There should be. Council. Okay, now we have sound. Thank you, Simon. Yeah. We will start over. Good evening, Council, and welcome to our Council Visioning session, a special meeting tonight. And thank you for your decorum and thank you for your attendance, all Council and staff. We will not be using eScribe tonight. So if there is anything that you are opposed to, once again, please use the chat function on WebEx. We will be, this is our visioning session to get a direction to staff, senior staff, on where council is thinking our attention needs to be. I want to thank our finance staff and Jessica for the efforts that they've put in. Becky has put in a lot of time already on this, and Jessica has compiled all the results of the public survey and the council surveys, which we'll be going through tonight. So thank you to those staff for those efforts and to help us get ready for this. Council, I appreciate your experience with this, your vision, and your ideas. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important documents that we do as council. This guides staff for the whole calendar year of 2021, and we need to take it serious. We're in uncertain times right now, and I believe that we are ahead of the schedule in starting to do the budget early. We're hoping to adopt this budget in February, knowing that we will not likely have our county and our education numbers at that point. But I still feel that we need to move ahead with our budget and look after North Perth, not be worried about all the other items that go into making up the final tax bill. We control our own, and I think we should come up with a budget that is fair and that is equitable and that is the best interest of North Perth in mind. So thank you for your decorum tonight. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for filling in the surveys. And I look forward to hearing some more great discussion and talks this evening. I would now be looking for a mover and a seconder. We have an agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda? Would then could I ask Councillor Andreessen to move the agenda, please?
Yes, I'll make that motion to move the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, could I get Councillor Anstead to second that?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Anyone with any opposition to that, please speak in the chat function, or we will call that carried. Is there anyone with any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Please indicate in the chat function. Nothing.
And the other thing is, might be under audio, video, just changing this. So we'll do speaker microphone and that here. And change it to the bottom one. And try hit test. So now just hit X on that. And you should be good.
Sorry, I'm still having some audio issues here. We are moving into the report that Jessica compiled about the 2021 budget survey results. Glad to report that Jessica is on her honeymoon. She was married on Saturday. So we will be getting those. This report will be from Pat, it will be from Fran and Chris. Fran and Chris will be presenting this report to us. Fran, did you want to start this?
Sure. As was designed, the survey went out to the general public and we were able to have 76 online submissions and 2 paper copies. And the survey results are attached. I'm sure you had the opportunity to go over them. And interesting numbers that came up. I think to highlight the most common noted concerns facing the municipality were roads, drainage, streetlights, sidewalks, growth, development, sustainability, provision of recreation facilities, parks, trails, and programs, housing and accommodation, and property tax. So fairly substantial agreement that they had good value for their money, with 9% strongly agreeing and 24% were neutral. Most respondents rated their satisfaction with the delivery of the municipality services. And I think the rest is there for your consideration. If there's any questions or detail that you would like to have when Jessica gets back, we can provide that in more detail for you.
Thanks, Fran. Chris, did you have anything you wish to add to that?
No, I think Fran summarized the overall highlights of the survey. Obviously, like always, I wish we had more input, but we have provided the public the opportunity, and hopefully they'll participate through the process going forward.
Thanks, Chris. I'll now open up for questions from council to either Fran or Chris. It's not coming on.
Hi, did you say that I could speak? I didn't hear that at all. Okay, I think I'm allowed to speak. It's just for you, Chairperson Dave. I just had a question for either Chris or for Fran, just regarding the demographics on the survey. Are we able to ask that kind of question around demographic of the people who are completing the surveys? I just would be interested in some of that, just around age and stage of the folks that are answering, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to ask that. Thanks.
I know some surveys do ask that information through you, Chair Johnson, to Councillor Andreessen. We consciously chose not to because we found that quite often the answer was that they did not want to provide that information. I'd say about 50% of the time. And we weren't sure if, even if we did know what it was, what we would use that for particularly. But if that's something council feels that we need to have, by all means, we'll make note of that and consider that in next year's survey. But I would like to know, so we want to know that so that we know who we're catering to, or relative to the demographics of the municipalities. I think we want to put around some consideration as to what we would use that information for from that survey, but certainly I see it on other surveys, and as long as the option's there to not answer, then or would rather not, then I feel that it's not an issue.
Just supplementary to that, through you, the chairperson, Mr. Johnson. The reason for that is just to understand the needs. I think that you were mentioning about, Fran, is sometimes people's needs in our community really differ based on age and stage, and just to be open to what those needs are based on that can be helpful. That's why I just mentioned it. Thank you so much.
May I be heard again? Alan just said it on chat.
It's saying it's taken it off.
Now you can hear me, Alan?
Chair Johnston's having some technical difficulties at this moment, and we'll be hopefully correcting it shortly.
Now can anyone hear me? Okay. Thank you. Now, Mayor Todd, did you have a question? Now maybe that you can hear me.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, my question actually is quite similar to Councillor Andreessen's. One matter I think that perhaps we'll have to give consideration to is a ward split. I think there's some data in there that reflects differing priorities. Certainly, I took note of, in particular, the question about the broadband internet needs, and I'd be awfully curious about how that was split out by ward, but I don't think we have that data to do that. So we may just want to add that to our thoughts for next year.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Johnson. I appreciate the work and effort that staff have gone to put the survey out and tabulate the results. I'm just wondering if, because the question did come up in terms of the survey, what are we actually going to do with some of the results here specifically? And is it fair, or can we actually compare year over year, especially when we're looking at how the satisfaction with the delivery of the municipality's various services? What does that tell us in terms of the people that are responding? Are they feeling that we're doing better or doing worse, doing the same? There's some very good data there, and I realize that it's less than 80 people. It's less than 1% of our population, but I think it's still important that we sort of pull back the information and take a look at that. Thank you.
Fran or Chris, would you like to comment on that? I personally, I think that we need to get a couple more years or several more years and as our numbers hopefully over the next 5 years continue to grow, then the results will be a little more stable and a little more of a more of a cross section. But I don't know if Fran or Chris have a comment on that.
I could just add to one of the things that we're doing as part of our modernization review right now with KPMG is we're also conducting a customer service survey. So that data may also help in providing us more of a base going forward as far as our customer satisfaction with municipal services.
Thanks, Chris. Fran?
I would just support that as well, and certainly we can include the comparison, even though it's in its infancy in terms of the survey. We'll just start doing that now as a matter of course, if that would be council's wish, and do that comparison and just put the chart together for just information. We'll bring that back at another meeting.
Thanks, Fran. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much. Through you, the Chair Johnson, I also believe that with the limited numbers that we did get back, it is still a fairly good response. I would think going forward, putting in a question in there about approximate age would be of benefit, not to a lot of benefit, because at the end of the day, a taxpayer is a taxpayer, regardless if it's a young family just starting out or an older couple. I think it would be of interest to find out. I would find it be more of interest to find out what services we could provide. If you could possibly ask the question, like Councillor Andreessen had said about ward, like where is everyone from? Because I noticed, as Todd had made mention, Todd had mentioned about the internet broadband, and I noticed that we've had many discussions about that, and you could probably tell from some of the survey results that they were probably from the people that have high-speed internet already, that obviously it's not an issue to them personally. So having a ward breakout going forward in the surveys, I think, would be of benefit. Probably almost a necessity, because the wants and needs of the urban and rural could be starkly different as far as any capital projects and services that we can provide going forward. So I think that might be of more benefit than possibly age, because at the end, like I said before, at the end of the day, a taxpayer is a taxpayer. It doesn't really matter what age, and we can still provide the services. They can still comment on what we do provide, and if we provide it in a good manner. But I think it would be a good reference point, but ward would be much more localized and specific to wants and needs of that particular area. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson, and I'm sure that Becky is taking notes for the survey next year, as is Vice Chair Rothwell. And I'm sure that I agree that next year to put in the ward question, I agree, could be helpful to find on some of these answers on some of the questions what people think. So very good point, and thank you. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Richardson.
Just a quick supplemental. I also feel that given the limited number of results, like if you had, say we had 1,500 results, that would be a lot different in the demographics, because you would be getting a good mix, but especially nothing for this discussion, but if you look at some of the very high level and the big discussions that we have as a municipality, it garners a lot lower result than, say, something, just for the sake of argument, if you look at the number of respondents that we had for chickens, vastly different than what we had for our budget, which at the end of the day is the most important thing that we do year over year over year. So I would think having that possible breakout might try and aggregate it a little bit better. When you get if you get a lot more responses, I think it would wash out and become normalized. However, I think when you've got, at the end of the day, if you've got 71 respondents are making up 91% of the survey respondents, that's a very limited pool to be basing, over a $30 million budget on it. but I appreciate everyone's comments, but it would be nice to know where everyone's coming from. And I really find some magic potion somewhere to get more people involved in this survey process and how we can do things as far as especially the budget goes. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Fran, did you want to comment on that?
I'm just wondering, based on Councillor Richardson's comments, that perhaps if we were to start the process of the survey earlier and provided a bit more advertising around it, whether that would help. I know we have done that. We've done it numerous ways in the past, but I'm just wondering if there was a bit more time and we started it earlier. Some of these questions, I think it doesn't matter what time of year. I think they, like thinking of the services provided, you know, what do you want to maintain, enhance, reduce, those sorts of things. I think people know year over year and could be answered maybe at any time during the year, as opposed to just limiting it to the few days that few weeks that we have. Possibly a longer period of time might help. Give it a try anyway.
Thanks, Fran. Good point. Good point. Councillor Behrens.
Thanks, Chair Dave. I just am a little bit concerned that with only 78 surveys and with the breakdown of who identified what type of property, I'm a little bit concerned that we remember to read this with a grain of salt, since we can't really take the percentages of, you know, who wants a dog park, for example, when the majority of respondents were urban residential. That doesn't mean that everybody wants to pay for that. That just means that those are the people that filled out the survey. So I think you just have to constantly remember, you know, for any of the answers, it was 78 surveys and the breakdown of those 78 surveys. I mean, you can do it by ward, but I think it's clearer to see, you know, who identified as farmland versus who identified as industrial and who identified as rural residential. There is quite a difference in just those 78 surveys. So I think you just have to be very careful and perhaps maybe doing the survey earlier in the year and not during the summer months might be a little bit better idea. There's nothing wrong with doing the survey in June and having it open for a little bit longer. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie, and I agree with that. And it would be our hope that in the next, you know, several years, as we keep building this opportunity for people to comment on our budget, that maybe we can get to 500, 1,000 surveys. And I agree, maybe we started in June. Maybe we do a round in June and a round in, you know, not through the summer, not through July and August, but maybe Fran and Becky put their heads together and come up with a time that we can get it out there and get a bunch of better results. And I agree, 78 results, you know, yes, so 6 people want a dog park, and that would put it right to the top of the list. So I agree, the results can be a little skewed, and you're right, Council, we will take it with a grain of salt. Thank you, Councilor Beers. Any more questions? Not seeing any, I would be looking for a mover and a seconder that we would receive the results of the 2021 budget survey as information. Could I ask Councillor Behrens to move that?
Yes, I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. And Councillor Duncan, would you second that motion? Sorry, Councillor Duncan's not with us. Mayor Kasenberg, would you second that motion?
I second that motion, yes.
Thank you. And if anyone is in opposition, please indicate that in the chat line. Otherwise, we will call that carried. Okay, so that is carried. Moving on to the thematic opportunities. So different themes that we have in our budget this year, and through the 2021 council budget survey, there was definitely some themes that came up. And I want to just highlight a few of them and get some comments from some of the respondents that talked about these in their answers. So I don't want to pick on anyone, but anybody can comment on any of these opportunities. But if you mention these in your budget survey, please try to comment before I point you out, if that would be okay, Council. So I'm just going to pick on some of the ones that were mentioned the most. And so investment in IT. It's a theme that's out there. There's a lot of it out there. So anybody want to comment on investment in IT? Could I ask Mayor Kasenberg to comment on that?
I was just typing in me as you asked. Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Yes, I think, the corporation has made moves forward with the IT master plan in 2020. And so we have now a schedule, if you will, that I think the consultants laid out for us that would allow us to invest progressively in information technology that will facilitate the work of the corporation. And I think that this council needs to continue to be committed to those investments. As well, I think, we have to think a little bit about that smart city theme that, our IT within the organization is fine and can enable the work of the corporation and make us more efficient and more effective in our interactions, as long as it's used appropriately. But we need to be thinking about downtown community Wi-Fi. We need to be thinking about broadband internet, as you know, one of my pet projects. So there are a number of IT-related themes, I think, that will rear their head in the coming years, and we should be preparing for that for 2021's budget.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Councillor Andreessen.
I just want to echo much of what Mayor Kasenberg said, and through you, Chairperson Johnson, I want to add a couple of things to that. From my experience in working with some committees here at the, with North Perth, I'm finding that workflow really, really differs from department to department. And I'm wondering if through IT, we could make some more efficiencies with that type of workflow. So as an example, a lot more work can be done in terms of the possibility of using like G Suite for sharing documentation, for shared documents, for working on shared documents, that kind of thing. And the storage of that documentation, I have great concerns about ensuring that that storage is easy for us to access as a corporation, but also well protected from external hackers and well protected in terms of any kind of security breaches as well, as we know that our colleagues in other municipalities have been unfortunately attacked. So I think that we need to continue to be diligent and have a strong investment in IT in order to make and help the corporation work more effectively, but also to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Fran, did I see that you wanted to comment on this?
No, not right at the moment, but I just am taking notes and.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair Dave. My comment leads us into another theme, but it's really relevant in terms of IT upgrades. It's also the streaming investments that were made earlier on. And frankly, without the investments that Council enabled our staff to undertake for us, we wouldn't be able to hit the ground running like we did in March. And I appreciate the work and effort that was taken. It was a substantial amount to invest, and a fairly steep learning curve, but I think hats off to our staff that and counselors, because there was a fair bit of change of the way we do business, but that was definitely an investment which allowed us to continue to meet, to make decisions, irrespective of the fact that we have still a declared emergency, and Mayor Todd's done a wonderful job in his role. But the other work of the corporation still goes forward. So it's related to the next point, which was also on our list, but it's definitely an IT-related item. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Another theme, and this one is always in our scan is road maintenance updates. I wonder if Councillor Richardson would comment on road maintenance and updates.
Thank you. Through you, the chair. I do find that, and I've made mention of this before, and I happen to be on the website right now. I get a lot of people who are talking to me about the construction updates. It's not necessarily complaints or anything like that, and yes, they can be found. But it takes a little bit of digging because everyone knows that in Canada there's two seasons, construction and winter. If you look at the construction schedule, it's under capital projects, and with the exception of the, I would say, 20 people in the municipal staff and council, 30 people possibly that would know to actually navigate towards the actual capital project section and to find the updates on those, no one would navigate to it. So I was just basically saying like some of the updates and the links that I've seen on here are really good. And I think it's even a bonus that there happens to be pictures involved. They could even be diminished down to a little bit to say, case in point, like the Kincaid lights. Lights will be operational. They're delayed by 2 weeks. They'll be up and running in 2 weeks. I know they're running now, but I'm just saying, like at the time, it doesn't necessarily need a full picture expose. But I think it's really good that people can see what's going on if they haven't necessarily been to that section, or if you look at what's going on Albert Street right now with the construction. The pictures are fantastic. Do not get me wrong. But at the end of the day, even having point form, when's that road going to be open? When can I get through? When do I don't have to reinvent the wheel to get to the other side of town? And I do believe that we quite possibly could look at our hot links on the front of the site, of the website that we have, because we certainly have 6 hot links at the bottom, of which include childcare, rec facilities, employment and volunteering, garbage and recycling, library, and bids and tenders, all very important, but possibly just even physically space-wise, we could reduce that down for construction and closures, events that are going on. This could be also a good spot that not everyone would read the council package, or I'm just saying, would not necessarily know that there is a parade going on. If they don't know there's a parade going on, chances of them going to the website to find out what's closed is moot. But I'm saying there's a parade going on. This is going to be closed for this event. We've got whatever. This street is going to be closed down. Construction and any sort of municipal infrastructure disruptions that there might happen to be would be a good spot to do that. But we do need a hot link right from the front page of the website that can get there all the time. And it has been, I have looked at it and I'm looking at it now and it looks great, but just a little bit more readily accessible from the main page as a hot link directly. That's all I meant by it.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Mayor Kasenberg.
Thanks. I think Council has received reasonable accolades from the additional investment in gravel and gravel road maintenance in the spring and summer and into the fall across the municipality. We made that commitment, I think, in 2018, and and that carried through the last 2 financial years. I think that there's still a call to continue that spend, and it's appreciated, I know, by those living in our rural areas. As well, I was quite happy actually with the shave and pave operation that happened in the downtown area to fix some of those roads that were getting pretty ratty, and I find myself wondering if we shouldn't be thinking about, either maintaining or increasing slightly commitments to shave and pave operations in a few other places in town, to be determined, of course, by our operations group. But some high priority shave and paves could continue to benefit our community, I think. And so I'd like to commend that to our thinking with regards to road maintenance.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Looking to Councillor Seiler, would you have any comments about road maintenance, traffic / truck bypass? Terry.
Well, I guess I could probably comment on your truck bypass. Our truck bypass, I know we're working hard on getting our second done, but trying to get traffic around Listowel over on the 3rd Wallace or line 87, I guess it would be, that corner has to be addressed before you can move any trucks around that intersection at the 3rd there. You can get around town with the truck, then you come up to that intersection and there's no way getting on because the traffic is very busy there and it just doesn't work. So until we can get that intersection done out there at the 3rd, we'll have a hard time moving truck traffic around Listowel. That's kind of got us pinned right now. What else was there, Dave, you wanted me to comment on?
Road maintenance, Terry. Rural and or urban. I know you get out on both roads, so.
Yeah, well, just to comment on to Councillor Richardson there, I've picked up a lot of stuff there just listening to the ranch there on our construction around town. They've give us good updates on what we're working on kind of day by day, that especially the road to line the darking there with the paving and that, they've kept good updates there and whatnot. And I feel that our roads are, the grading there is very good. I know the one 6 of Wallace there that we just did rebuilt that. There's been a lot of people ask what about the paving, and I guess I found out they're going to leave it for till next spring and let it settle, and then do the paving then. I guess that'd be Councillor Behrens' road and whatnot. But I think that our winter maintenance program is doing very well, and as far as our road maintenance, I've had no problem compared to some of our neighbors around. That we are doing very excellent in that situation. So other than that, that's probably my comments.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Seiler. Anyone else wish to comment on road maintenance / traffic? Okay, I'd like to move on then to, Councillor Andreessen.
Hi, thank you through you, Chair Johnston. Just around the truck bypass, I just want to continue to advocate that any truck bypass has to have really good infrastructure in place. And knowing that these bypasses would be on rural routes, I really think that having them as wide as possible would be ideal, given the fact that we've got heavy farm machinery on these roads, and traffic would be navigating around that type of machinery. And in terms of safety of both the farmer and the traffic, I would like to make sure that as we move forward, we really look carefully at the right route and also upon the structure of that route to make sure that when we do this work, it's done in a very quality type of fashion. And we're really trying to keep safety in mind to support the businesses, the farm businesses that are trying to operate on these routes, which could involve these bypasses. So I think that needs to be top of mind as well. Thank you.
Very good point, Leanne, and thank you very much for that. And yes, I agree. A truck bypass is one of the top priorities, But I also agree that we are an agriculture community, that we need to protect our farmers and their way to get around. We don't want to bypass all the trucks around Listowel by putting them on to rural roads, and having tractor accidents would not be good. So thank you very much for that. I would like to move on now to economic development and how we can enhance it. It's a theme that came up several times. Would anyone like to tackle economic development? Maybe then if nobody's, oh, Mayor Todd. Mayor Todd, go ahead. Thank you.
I think we're at a point with regards to our local economy that the number one economic development task that we could pursue that's more assertive than current posture, and we've been very assertive in trying to develop the economy of our community, is to address affordable housing. In the absence of that, we cannot sustain a workforce, let alone keep people happy. So I think that we're going to have to take some more significant effort. And I actually am advocating that we consider very seriously introducing a position into our corporate organization that addresses housing. Perhaps it's called the housing coordinator or housing navigator, something like this. But we certainly need to have some options created. We need to support people who are looking for housing that is affordable in our community so that we can sustain our industries and sustain agriculture and cause them and allow them to grow, give them these circumstances that will allow them to grow. So for me, when I think about economic development, there's so much happening. It's been very busy, very pleased with the work that our team does. But housing is now one of the most significant challenges that we face as a community.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that we are, with regards to the Economic Development Committee, that we are doing a little bit of a change, and we have what's called an Economic Development Advisory Committee, and part of that team is myself, Mayor Todd, and Councillor Andreessen. So what we have done is we're bringing some people from the community in different categories, and I believe one of them is the industrial area, one is a commercial area, one is agriculture, one is creative economy, and the other is solo entrepreneurs. And we come up with a ranked list with some great candidates and rank them. And out of the categories, I'm pleased to say that as of today, 2 have committed to come on board and to help us move forward with economic development. This is very exciting for us, and to get that input from other citizens in the municipality. And once the other 3, I believe we have until September 8th for them to make a decision, and if the other 3 do not accept, then we move down to the next person on the ranking system. But once this is completed, we will be communicating more with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. That's exciting. I look forward to the progress and the ideas that come out of that, because I think there's no better way to get great ideas than to look within your own community and the grassroots people. And these people that have built successful businesses are the ones that we need to be looking towards. So great idea, and kudos to you, you 3. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chair Johnston. I have the great opportunity to serve on the economic development team as well, as mentioned. And one of the things that I think was done this year to support the COVID recovery was the online platform for local business to market their services and their products. And that was supported by our municipality. And I just want to commend the work that Kim has done through economic development to support our local businesses to do this. And I can see that this could, probably be effective and helpful to support the continued growth and recovery in this difficult time. So I would like that to be a consideration. I've also had the ability and privilege to work with the agriculture team in terms of COVID recovery here in North Perth. And one of the things that has come out loud and clear, and actually with great compassion, is the great concern for rural business to be able to effectively conduct that business by having adequate internet delivery and service. It's very sad to hear companies who are really struggling to keep going because they just can't get enough adequate service in these rural areas to conduct their business. And this includes our local farms who are relying on technology more and more just to farm, as well as other businesses that are popping out in rural areas. And I just want to, you know, make this top of mind in order to serve our rural community, that we need to think about ways that we can support them and ways that perhaps there could be some investment made to support internet service for our rural folks and our rural businesses. So thank you for this opportunity to speak to that.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Anstead.
Thanks, Chair Johnson, and all great comments. One thing I wanted to just piggyback on, and I know Mayor Todd mentioned it earlier, was just about a position regarding housing, and I do certainly think that's something that we should explore. The other thing that I want to at least bring up and get feedback from everybody is an economic development position by itself. Kim does a lot of great work, but she's one person, and I think that she's stretched out. I look around at many other communities in Midwestern Ontario, places like Saugeen Shores, places like Owen Sound, Stratford. These are all areas that are growing very fast, and they're all areas that have an economic development coordinator. So in terms of moving our economic platform forward, getting more investment into North Perth, getting more businesses to come here, I think it would really be worthwhile us to at least explore the opportunity that we would have at least to look at an economic development position solely focusing on economic development. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anstead. That's some great points there as well, and I do agree on some of our neighbors do seem to get the jump on us on some economic development. Now we'll be turning to Councillor Bearns.
Thanks, Chair Dave. I just wanted to make a comment about the broadband and the internet, and we have to be mindful that we do have a number of private companies moving in. I mean, there's a new one setting up towers, Kurtzville, Molesworth, etc. I'm sure everybody's seen the ads for what they call air fiber or things like that. And as much as I know it's always been such a challenge for council that we can't really compete with individual businesses either. While it's important to make an investment, we have to be mindful that they are businesses and this is what they do. So I think the opportunities for that is coming. And believe me, you know, I would love to have better connection. But I think with that, there comes a cost. And part of it is, you know, because some of our agricultural businesses need upload speeds more than download speeds. So, and sometimes the technology, even though it's available, it isn't necessarily a reasonable cost because you're out in the country. So I think we should just be mindful of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bearns. Now we will turn to Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Dave. I just want to pick up on Councillor Ansted's comment. I agree to a point here in terms of ECDEV and positions and so on, but and perhaps our ECDEV folks can talk more specifically about this, but we have county staff that are involved in ECDEV, and then we have part of one local staff involved in ECDEV, and the issue has always been in many people's minds about is who is doing what. Are they working together? Are they working similar, or are they doing similar sort of things. Are we getting the most bang for the buck, I guess, is the question here, because that's the issue that I think we need to be mindful of. And just putting additional resources at it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get the most or any better matter going forward. So I mean, that's something perhaps our ActDev committee can look at in terms of who's doing what and the delivery of the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I have one more theme that I'd like to talk about, and that deals with policing. And we're going to piggyback on a couple of things here about policing, about their reporting metrics, and also the responses to mental health and homelessness. Would anybody like to comment right off the bat on some of our policing issues? Councillor Andreessen, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Johnston, through you. I just want to share a personal experience with you. Recently, I was in the downtown core and was walking down a street to where I had parked my vehicle, kind of on a side street. And as I was turning the corner to go down that street, I was approached by a homeless person who had very erratic behavior, who actually kind of scared me on the street. And I'm feeling very concerned about, I'm more concerned about that person and their mental health and their needs. And I feel that that was the cause of their erratic behavior that day. And I really think that I understand that it's to some degree police are involved, but I think this is much larger than police services, you know, approaching and helping this type of problem. I think we need to look at it more holistically and support police in handling it. And in terms of looking at other agencies and services that can work alongside police officers when they are supporting these types of issues in our community. I also too just want to, through that story, just highlight that our community is changing and that these needs are becoming more and more prevalent. In 30 years of being here, I've never had that happen. And not only did that happen that day, but I have seen just visually and observed more and more of these types of needs with people in our community, and really wonder if, there's something we can do alongside with police and other agencies to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Richardson.
Hi, thank you. Through you, the chair. I feel that the policing is actually doing quite a good job in town. I've had an experience earlier this year with the police where nothing but kind and cordial and to do everything that they should and very good, but that was a one-off experience. When I say one-off, let me qualify that. Does not mean there's multiples. That's not the case. But I'm just saying that they were very good, but I also feel that the police force is tasked from personal knowledge of how the police detachment works out of North Perth, that sometimes they get a little taxed with available manpower, that they can only do so much with the resources that they have given to them from higher up. But I also agree that I do think that there needs to be something in place. I don't have an answer, but there needs to be something in place as far as for mental health initiatives, because I have noticed that there has been several sightings and comments from people about people who are homeless, who do need assistance, who do need a hand up. Where they've come from, I do not know, but I do believe that they could use some assistance. If the police could help in situations like that, possibly, but I know that they're also taxed with doing their regular policing duties of another nature. But I don't know what the silver bullet answer is for the homeless I just wanted to comment on the police that I think they're doing a good job, and I have no questions or concerns about that. But we certainly do need to look at the mental health aspect and or the homeless aspect and try and find a remedy to assist some of these folks who do indeed need some assistance of some description.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I'm just wondering now if I might skip into Chris. Did you want to comment on the mental health aspect with regard to policing?
So the OPP have made a number of changes with the last couple of years with one of our local officers being dedicated to community support. And I think that has been a very positive mood for the policing. So we do have an officer that's sort of much like our school officer was dedicated to the schooling situation and police in the school. We do now have an officer that does basically just support the known people in our community that have police involvement and mental health concerns. The other thing I know is that there is one crisis caseworker that is now on call with the policing, and I know with the conversations at our police services board last meeting that Stratford and OPP are working on trying to get a second crisis support worker for our area because that has proved to be very beneficial. As well as regarding the homelessness in our community, I know Mayor Todd was invited to a meeting that was started as a spinoff of our local United Way committee. They've started another grassroots committee with some members from some of our local churches to put together a grassroots committee to look at the issue of homelessness, and they will be coming up with some ideas that I think council will be seeing in the near future to address this problem. And I guess, and in my conversations with United Way and social services too, it is a difficult situation, and people still need to want to have the help, and that's sort of always our challenge around this issue. But that's sort of where we're heading, and just to give council that background.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor Todd. So Chris covered that quite well and stole some of my comments, certainly, thank you. But certainly to Leanne's point, and I think all of us need to be aware, we are going to see a lot more visibility of homelessness in our community. We've sort of hit that magic size, and of course the circumstances of the last 8 months have sort of fueled some of that. Per the comment about where they're from, many of them are from here. They want to be here, and that's among the challenges faced by the social service group in the city of Stratford, who are our service managers for social services, because certainly in dealing with the homeless, there is a housing first approach, and there's every effort made to offer housing to those who are homeless, and the challenge often is that to get them into temporary shelter, those individuals have to be relocated to Stratford because of the current arrangements around temporary housing. And some individuals refuse that offer because they have connections in this community and they do not want to be relocated. So certainly it's a complex issue. I've had multiple and lengthy conversations with social services and with various groups in our community to try to understand the platform and our environment at the present time. And certainly there are things that we need to do. I will point out that one of the COVID recovery action groups has been talking about this mental health piece as well, and about making available more services through a variety of means, but focusing, I think, on creating a website that supports North Perth relevant information. And I know that's moving along at a pace. I think from a budget perspective, this council should prepare for an ask. It's not a surprise ask because our mental health task force going back a year ago had suggested that a similar action. And we probably should put aside an amount of money that can support the development of a website in our community. Hopefully we'll find other sponsors as well, but I think this is an action that it seems like its time has come, both from a task force that we had report to council and from the COVID Recovery Action Group. So something for us to think about from a budget perspective.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. We're now to Councillor Bearns.
Thank you, Chair Dave, and through you, as a member of the Police Services Board, I can tell you that police services have been overly taxed with some of the mental health issues within the community. And while every officer is trained to some extent with mental health, they have been upgrading to take additional courses. Like Chris says, we do have a designated officer, and we do have more community connections that happened this year because of it. But I will remind you that, you know, not just the analogy that you can lead a horse to water, but also that a lot of people, their first thought is to call the police. It's not illegal to be homeless. And I think we have to remember that. Well, yes, we can try to help whenever we can. People have to be willing to receive that help. I will say that a survey was done, but we haven't seen all of the results yet for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Survey, which we will be probably hopefully putting a little bit of money in our budget to deal with that. I'm not sure if that's the same program that the mayor is speaking of. Those recommendations will be coming forward at some time. I have no idea really when, but we will keep you as up to date and informed as we possibly can. And if you have any further comments, we'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Bearns. Now, Councillor Anstead.
Thanks, Chair Johnson, and I'll just be brief. Councillor Bearns actually that's where I was going to go, so thanks for raising that. Having served on a police services board previously, I was the chair on the Brockton Police Services Board for 2 years, and I concur with what Councillor Bearns is saying, that you can only help people to a certain extent that they want to be helped. And the problems here in North Perth and Perth County, for that matter, are not much different. In fact, they're not different from problems in all other small communities throughout Midwestern and Southwestern Ontario. But I think, again, we need to be mindful that the police, they're trained. Yes, they are receiving more training, and that's great. But again, I don't think that the police are necessarily experts, and we need to go through these other avenues like Mayor Kasenberg has been mentioning to ensure that our police are not overly taxed, because right now they are overly taxed, and I think COVID-19 has just exacerbated that with increase in mental health issues. So again, I think we just want to make sure that they're going to the right avenues so that we're not overtaxing our police. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. Very well spoken, and I agree. I think mental health is we're just at the tip of the iceberg as we head into continue into this pandemic. I would like to move on now to item 4.3, which we're starting into what we call the council visioning session. And I'm going to ask each councillor and deputy mayor and mayor to come up with their top priority. And I don't want everybody coming up with the same one, so I would like you to think outside the box a little bit on this. So I'm going to ask everybody to come up with their primary item that they see is of a top priority, and also a secondary item. And we're going to go in a random order here. Nobody knows the order. In fact, I don't even know the order for sure yet, but be prepared to speak. But I would like everybody to come up with one primary and one secondary thing that they see as part of their vision for the 2021 budget. Now, remember, this is a budget that is of very uncertain times. We don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. The second wave is still very active and coming at us here. So how long we will be into this COVID-19 recovering. It could be COVID-22 by the time we're done with it. So it's, you know, it's here. We have to deal with it. We have to carry on as, you know, is the new norm. So masks and scarves are going to become normal part of our attire, I think, for quite a while. So I would, I'm open to your suggestions, Council. I hope you've thought about what you're going to say. I remember last year at this session, we had some great ideas and some great vision. And I know all the expertise that's sitting around this table. I'm sure we're going to get some great responses. So we are going to start off with Deputy Mayor Kellum, please.
Guess I better go off mute. Thank you, Chair Johnson. Well, you kind of stole a little bit of the thunder. These are uncertain, you know, times moving forward, and this is a very crucial year for our budget. So we've had this discussion in the past, and it's been brought up about a wish list. Well, 2021, I don't want a wish list. There's nothing to wish for out there during these times. Instead of coming in at like a 6 or 6.5% budget, I like to see it come in low and go up instead of cutting back. I guess what I'm saying is, what does senior staff need, not want? What do they need to move forward in 2021? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. I enjoyed that, short and sweet and to the point. Next, we are going to move to Councillor Seiler.
Thank you there, Chair Dave. I guess my outlook would be the way some of our streets in our municipality of Listowel, I don't know if many people take the time to drive around some of them. We've been doing a lot of patching with them and whatnot, but there's a lot of them that are need the best repair or the better repair. They're getting behind on us, and I guess traffic is another issue that we're trying to get addressed, and we're working hard at it. But between our traffic and some of our streets, with the town is just exploding with more and more people and more traffic, and we need to try to get a grip on it. So I don't know where we start at it, but hopefully that we can get a handle on it and get something in control soon. And I just want to comment on with our capital budgets. I know last year we had a big wish list there with a lot of projects and that, and there's a lot of them that I can think of that we haven't even touched yet and whatnot. So I guess we should come back with our primitize on where our capital is going to go and which ones come first. I'd like to see the ones that we haven't done that we were going to do last year, and then just bring back where we're going to start off and finish, because I think there's a lot there that we budgeted for that we haven't got done. So anyhow, that's my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Seiler. I'll now turn to Councillor Behrens for comments.
Thanks, Chair. Around about 23 and 86, it could solve a lot of problem with all of the traffic in town. The secondary thing would be for everyone to read the Municipal Act and see what your spheres of jurisdiction are. We can't be the answer to everyone's problems on everything, especially in these challenging times. People are struggling to be employed, struggling to maintain a business, struggling to pay taxes. And while it's nice to have a wish list, to quote the Deputy Mayor, realistically, we are responsible for efficient, effective use of tax dollars. And to me, it was mentioned about, a housing coordinator. If we don't have the housing, I'm not exactly sure what a housing coordinator is going to do. That I'm not trying to be cynical or anything else. I think there's times and places for everything, and I think we are still charged with the efficient and effective use of tax dollars. And in this year, we haven't even, as North Perth Council, had a report on what COVID has actually cost the municipality. So it might actually be nice to have something like that so that we know where we're starting from. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. And now ask Councillor Anstead.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson, and I'll be brief as well. Just to quote kind of what the Deputy Mayor said is, we don't know how long the COVID-19 pandemic is going to last, and a lot of people, they are struggling. And I realize that as a municipal government, we are creatures of the province, but at the same time, I think we need to understand that we need to exercise fiscal restraint, because as Councillor Behrens already mentioned, people are worried about where their next paycheck's coming from, how they're going to pay their taxes, how they're going to put food on their table. I just said goodnight to my son, who's almost 2, and I don't know what the next 6 months looks like. I don't know what the next year looks like because of what's going on in the world right now. So I think for me, the one thing that I want to focus on is, what do we need to run the municipality, be effective with our tax dollars that we're receiving, and provide essential services to residents? What do we need to do that? So what I'm looking for from senior staff is, what are the key things that we need to make sure that the municipality continues to run and provide effective services to residents for their tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chairperson Johnston. The first thing I want to speak about is just with economic development, which is within our scope at this time, and given these challenging times, I think as a team, we might need to relook at our focus and really look at what can our efforts do to focus on this recovery to support local business who might be struggling, who need that leg up to continue on. I'm very concerned about, you know, their continued sustainability. When you look at businesses, even in our urban areas, south of here, we see different types of, you know, stores closing down, companies closing down across the country. And I certainly want to make sure that our economic development committee can work on the behalf of local business to support them. I think we have a good strategy that we've started, but I think we need to keep our expenditures and areas of focus on that recovery as much as possible. Just in terms of capital projects, I echo much of the sentiment that's already happening this evening. I certainly support really wanting to work efficiently on behalf of the taxpayer. And may I offer an idea? Currently, as a provincial employee in a school board, we don't have a lot of carryover ability. And I know that many projects were not able to be done this year, and no fault of staff. Staff are doing a wonderful job given these challenging circumstances. But I think we have to be careful about, you know, what we're carrying over and what new projects we're taking on. And perhaps we just need to focus on what really needs to be done, and perhaps through those carryovers, rather than taking on much more new things, because otherwise we're dedicating taxpayer money to projects that aren't getting done, and they're having to be postponed to later dates. And we really want to make sure that we're utilizing that taxpayer money to support our needs at this moment as much as possible, rather than creating a lot of new projects when we're still working on old projects. So again, from that capital perspective, just being, you know, really shaving down to what my colleagues are saying is what we really need to finish up and do at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. I've had several conversations today and have to reiterate it again here that 8 months ago, it was a totally different world for everybody, not just North Perth, not just Perth County, not Ontario, everybody on the planet, it was totally different. And I do believe that our budgeting process needs to reflect that change, that economic change globally, obviously more so directed in here, because as Councillor Bairns alluded to by referencing the Municipal Act, as Municipal Council, we have one job. We collect property taxes and we provide services that we are allowed to provide in the most cost-effective manner. Full stop. That's what we do as a municipal council. Essentially, we're a board of directors of a large company. So I do believe that fiscal restraint is of necessity. We do need to, we don't know if the light at the end of the tunnel is a train or a meadow. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in our time that we need to be aware of, that we need to finish the needs. I do agree with Councillor Andreessen with some of the carryovers that we had. The absolute needs that we have from the staff for this year and or next year, because we all know that this is probably going to carry into 2021. What needs to happen? Even if we could try and, I shouldn't say not summarize, what's the word I'm looking for? If we could try and prioritize the needs as compared to what does the grading system go between a want and a need, stuff we need to have. But on the other side of the equation, we also need to keep in mind that we still need to grow. We have a population growth, we have building growth, we're exploding at the same time that all of this other stuff, all negativity is going on at the same time. So it's quite the quandary that we're in. So I would like to see what the needs of the staff really needs to have to finish up until 2021. I do think that we need to put away a little bit of money because we don't know what the future is going to hold. I agree with all the sentiments that are going to come forward for some of the capital projects. I do agree, as my secondaries, I do agree wholeheartedly with the roundabout at the third. Apologies, 87 and 23. I do agree that that would help out with a lot of traffic and possibly going forward with that, with our master plan for traffic. It could help with that. And also that I do know coming forward in capital that we will see something for the dam removal, and I know that is quite far down the list. But that is a project that has been ongoing and carried over for, there's probably just a handful of councillors that can remember the first time that it was initiated to come up. So the costs will continue to go up that for year to year to year to year. And we do currently only have permitting for a little bit, which have been granted by the fisheries department and the ministries and all of the different things that we have going on with that. So that capital report will be coming forward. That is something that is near and dear to my heart, but I also honestly did make mention to the committee that I understand this could be a very different budget, but I would certainly like to take it under consideration. At the end of the day, at some point, it has to happen and it needs to be done. So it's just a different time, and just a side comment that I would just like to thank all of the staff, and everybody has done an exceptional effort for everything that they've done in this weird, bizarre Twilight Zone type of time that we're in right now. It's totally, just kudos to all for staying safe and staying well. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. And now I'll ask Mayor Kasenberg.
Well, thank you, Chair Johnston. It has certainly been, and my everyday is a very busy experience as mayor. We've done a lot, as has been alluded to. There's still a lot of projects that will carry over into 2021 on the capital or projects front. Our operating expenses, we are fortunate that the province is supporting a certain proportion, at least, of COVID expenses out of municipal operations, and I'm quite encouraged by that. I will tackle head on, I think, the two longer range priorities that we probably need to take a start on. And I know that this council has differences of opinion about this, and even with my opinion on it, certainly. But I think our top priority actually is turning out to be the housing environment in North Perth. And I believe that it may be seriously time for us to start thinking about the creation of a North Perth Housing Corporation, which would manage our interests and assets in the housing market. I know that there are those who will recoil in horror at the notion that we should be involved in the local housing market, but unless we are, we will never get some progress on affordable housing. And so I think there's an opportunity there, and it's something for us to explore. If we don't, quite frankly, if we don't deal with the affordable housing agenda to some extent and get started on it, we will be cutting ourselves off at the knees as our population continues to age. And in their advanced age as we move forward in the next 15, 20 years, we will create problems in our social structure, in our employment structure that will leave those who are elderly unsupported. And I can't see doing that without serious implications and repercussions. I think the second priority, and I'll be unabashed about this, we've seen it highlighted and accentuated through the pandemic, is to deal with broadband internet. And I know again that there are some who believe that we shouldn't play in that game, but I disagree. And I think that we need to have a broadband strategy for North Perth that considers investment. In fact, I would be so bold as to say that many of the capital requests that we might naturally consider for 2021 could be deferred, and we could turn that money into a broadband internet strategy to get the job done. And I know that's a sort of radical or challenging proposition for some, but I would rather see us pursue that and have the bright future that is promised from having available data through all of our community than to sit and wait on other levels of government who are extremely unlikely to bring a reasonable solution set to us anytime in the next 5 years, given their expenses and their investments in COVID recovery, which we, I think, largely have been grateful for. So I think those are the two things that I would encourage. I can certainly explain at a future date, per Councillor Barron's question, how a housing coordinator might fit into the big picture of economic development. I don't think it's for this moment, for sure. And certainly, as I said, the broadband agenda council has asked for more information and more expert opinions on this, and they will be forthcoming. I know that CAO Snell has been working on lining up subject matter experts to present to our council so that we better understand the landscape that we're in and the options that are available to us. With that, I think those are the priorities that I'd focus on.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And finally, Vice Chair / Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Dave. I appreciate the comments. One of the benefits of going last, of course, is that I've heard what everyone else has had to say, so I'm not going to add particularly new items, but I will concur with what many have said. I believe that our top priorities are our essential services, and again, we need to focus on what we need to do and do it extremely well, because in streamlining our services that we're going to be able to focus on our members of our public that need to have the services that we and only we deliver. So those are important features that I think we need to focus on. And the last point I want to it was sort of mentioned, but and I'll pick up on in part what Mayor Todd just shared. Our budget for 2021 must be flexible and it must be responsive. And it could very well mean that we may come forward with an approved budget, which we may have to look at again and again, and perhaps again with modifications so that we are putting money exactly where we need to have it at that time. So what I will say is that in the comments that I've heard, and I agree with many of them, is that because this is a time like no other, we are going to have to really focus on what it is that we must do. And I'm not even saying that we'd like to do, we must do. And there are going to be some priority spends that have to be done. And there's going to be some things that would have been nice to do that are unfortunately going to have to wait. But those are the reasons why we're on council, and we have some excellent staff to help us with these things, is that we have to make those decisions. And these are going to be tough times. But I think if we all work together, we can do what's best for our citizens. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell, and thank you, Council, for all your visioning comments, your thoughts. You can tell that everybody has thought a great deal about it and about their top priorities and about the uncertainty that is definitely out there right now. And you can tell that's very much at the top of everybody's list. I think I don't know if any staff have any direct questions at this point or comments. If not, we'll just move right into item 4.4, summation and direction. As far as summation, you look at everybody's comments, and to me, it's Alan's comments that we need a flexible budget are very true, because we don't know where the light is at the end of the tunnel here. We don't know when the pandemic will be over. We don't know that maybe there's a third and a fourth wave coming yet. We're still well into the 500 and some cases again today. So we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. So I agree with the flexibility. For me, we got to remember that we are, and it's coming from a guy that's lived here his whole life, that we are a small town, and we like to keep that small town feeling. But it's very hard to do as we continue to grow and grow and grow. And you're right, Todd, Mayor Kasenberg, that affordable housing, I think it was in your inauguration throne speech that a couple of years ago almost now. But the problem is we haven't done anything about it, or we haven't solved the issues. We keep talking about it, and I think now you are right. It is time for action. We need to get some affordable housing out there for these households that are struggling to pay their bills. They are, with the amount of job losses out there, and people are now, some are getting back to work, but they've been out of work for 6 months, 7 months, 3 months. You know what I mean? So those households, there's a lot of savings that are gone. And so I agree that as much as we want to keep Listowel and North Perth and Atwood and Gownstown, those small town feelings, and this, beautiful rural agricultural area, but we do need to work on that, letting people stay here that want to stay here, that want to grow up here, that want to come back here. We need to get that, we have jobs available, but we need places for these people to live. So the housing is very good. I really like the comment about cleaning up the carryovers. If we can, and this year I think there's going to be a ton of it because of so many projects were canceled or delayed due to COVID-19, the pandemic, that it would be nice not to have as many carryovers as there has been in the past. And it, it would be nice to start with a very clean slate of projects as we turn the calendar over to 2021 budget, to start with a clean slate. So it would be nice to have that sometime, that we, if there was a way to not have as many carryovers. And some of these carryovers, yes, it's out of our control, but some of them have been carried over for several years. And going back to Deputy Mayor Kellum's comments right off the bat, it's more of a budget of needs and not wants. And I think that's something we need to keep in the back of our mind, that, what's our, not particularly a bare bones, but what is our necessities? What are the essentials? We heard that several times through the comments, that we need to look for our essential services. Through the comments of the survey, there was a bunch of comments about user pays. And if we can look at some of these other ones, some of our services that will become more user pay for those services, I think that's another great way to cut down on the amount of taxpayer money that we are asking people to pay for certain items. We will be meeting again the end of November to start going over the department project forecast for the 21 to 22 budget consideration. And amendment, we'll be looking at amendments made to the project budgets as presented. So we'll be looking at some of those in the end of November. And then we'll be meeting, so our schedule right now would have us meeting the 25th of November, the 9th of December, January 13th, January 27th, and February 10th are the meetings that we currently have scheduled in the future. Is there any other staff and or council with more comments this evening? Leanne?
Hi, thank you, Mayor, Chairperson Johnston. I guess this is my, third experience with sitting on council in terms of the budget process. And I'm just wondering if we could talk a little bit more about process. And I'm not sure if that's going to change this round. Maybe you can speak to that, Chairperson Johnston. The reason being is that last time in previous times, there's a lot of presentations, and we seem to pass a lot of the budget in bulk. And I'm quite concerned that we probably need to have a lot more, perhaps, debate and conversation as a council team about moving forward with approvals. And I'm not really good at thinking about what that process would look like, but I am concerned that even with debate, we might need to make decisions as we go along. I'm not sure what to suggest, but I am concerned given the gravity of moving forward with this very important budget. And I'm not sure if you could comment on that, or you thought of different processes to help us have that debate and make some decisions around that debate. Thank you.
Is that better? There we go. Sorry, right button, wrong guy. So thank you, Leanne. And as far as the process, I know like we go through everything line by line, but I've always found it to be a little boggling. You know what I mean? That we have this big budget in front of us and we're going through it and sometimes I always worry that things are getting lost and numbers, all we're doing is we're looking at the bottom line. And at the end of the night, we look at the bottom line and it says 3.9 or it says 8.7 or whatever, and that's the number that we work backwards on. And I think that's what staff will get out of the meeting tonight, Leanne, is that this council is concerned about next year. We're concerned about our taxpayers, our ratepayers' ability to pay the taxes. And I think the hint that I've got out of the meeting tonight is everyone is concerned. Everyone knows that the ratepayers or a certain portion of our ratepayers are struggling, and that we have to be very proactive on a bare bones budget. So I don't know, Leanne, what else, where else I could go. I'm not sure if anybody else has a comments about this. But it's a good point, Leanne. Councillor Behrens, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Dave. I think part of it is that we do go through it line by line and we take the time, but after we are done one particular department, it would be helpful if there was any changes if we just simply made them. before we moved on to the next department. It's nice to have the entire presentation and have the entire budget presented to us, but then all of it gets lost. And it's hard to remember, oh yeah, back on, 2 meetings ago, we did the clerk's department, whereas now we're looking at economic development and did we change that or didn't we change that? And I think that's what we need to change about our process is if anyone has an issue with anything, to say it when the department is making the presentation and pass a motion saying, either we receive it or we accept it somewhat pending final approval or something along those lines so that, we can say that we actually, I think a lot of the time we're confused. Did we change it? Didn't we change it? Or it got lost. So those are my comments. Thank you, Chair Dave.
Thanks, Julie. And maybe we can add a spot. Maybe we could flag certain items that we could come back to, potentially in our, if we're going through stuff, the second, third, fourth meetings, maybe at the fifth meeting, we could have a certain section in there for items that we have questions and or flagged to come back and say, okay, now that we've been through everything, yes, let's go back. And I'm open to suggestions like anything, but let's go back and look at this and say, no, now that we've been through it all, here's these 7 things that we flagged earlier on. Let's go back and look at them and let's say, no, we don't want to do this or we need to change that. So good ideas all the way around, everybody. Any other questions, comments, including staff? Any comments from staff at this point? Mayor Todd?
Thank you. Certainly, I will take note that at the county, the process that you just described is what was used last year. We circled certain things in the budget and pushed them forward to a later date where we could examine them more carefully. And I think that's a great opportunity. I think one of the things that has me puzzled at times, and I'll just comment on the process as well, is that what we typically see is sort of departmental budgets which reflect, if I may be so bold, continuity. And this may be a time where we're going to start to ask questions about continuity of certain types of operations or activities, right? If we're serious about keeping sort of to a lean, efficient government, then there may be some things that it's not about how much are they going to cost and can we make them cheaper, but it's about should we lose them? Should we take them out of the budget? And I'm interested in thinking through the appropriate process for that. If we were to ask, for example, all of our department heads, okay, if you had to remove 3 whole activities or 2 whole activities from your budget, what would those activities be and how would you go about it? That might give us a little bit more strategic information about how to adjust budgets when making choices about trying to keep a tax increase to the lowest possible amount for our ratepayers. So it's interesting. I participated last week in the Teeny Tiny Summit, and it was certainly about COVID recovery, and the subject matter expert who spoke at the beginning talked about the importance in these times of creative destruction. And his point was that we need to rethink in some ways the things that our governments do. And when we do that, we have to be brave and bold and challenging about not just trying to shave budgets or keep cost increases down, but to look at whole realms of activity and say, do we need to do that anymore? Would we be better off investing that money in something else? And so that's what worries me a little bit about the process, is that I don't think we have enough talk about that angle. This meeting sort of sets up the stage for some new ideas potentially, but it doesn't get us to the point of saying, and what things can we put aside? What things can we limit? What things can we do with without so that we can achieve the other priorities that we feel are more important. And I think we have to figure out, and perhaps the CAO and team can come back to us with a proposition about how we can identify some of those activities that are essentially elective or optional, and how we can be surgical about some of that.
I'm glad that all our senior staff are on the call tonight, and that they can get the gist of everything from council. Do we have more comments? Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Chair Dave. I guess one thing on my mind since we've gone into this COVID would be our operations. How much has it changed our operations? I just noticed on our last bills there, our grass cutting was outrageous. Is there ways that we can maybe do some of that ourselves in our operation and not farm as much out? I think that we need to look at our operations in a whole and see if there's cost savings in any of the departments, and maybe we have to do some adjusting there. I don't know. I'm not too sure what everybody's doing with their jobs, if everybody's busy or if there's time we can maybe be flexible and do our own grass cutting, some more of our own snow blowing with our own machinery. I'd like to have that looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. I also concur with the thought that coming back with anything that we talked about a capital project, that we can come back, and if any significant question that can't be answered at the night the question is posed, if it's coming back for information, that item should be flagged. Like what Mayor Todd had alluded to how it's done at the county and what we're suggesting here. I think that would be really good for anything that had significant speaking points to it to come back. Then it can come back and say, yes, we address this, or what does this look like, a different option, like an option B for one of those projects to come back. I think that's a really good idea going forward with our process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Chair Dave. And I appreciate the comments, and especially Mayor Todd, you've really dropped the gauntlet in my view in terms of laying it, because I heard you say the same words at County Council there last Thursday, creative destruction, but still at the same point being responsive to our public and so on. We have like no other time before, department heads and so on, and our staff and councils have to really look at what it is that we're doing. And this is at the full view of the fact that, yes, we're a growing municipality and so on, but we're struggling in terms of the economy and so on. And what does that mean? How are we going to be able to rationalize that? So this whole issue of what are we doing that we don't need to be doing has to be a top of mind issue. And this is unlike any other time, I believe, that we've done that. So I appreciate the bold comment that you, Mayor Todd, have raised. And if staff and the public are listening as well, these are important things that we really must do, and it's going to take time. And I'll tell you, it's going to hurt. It's going to be some pretty tough decisions, but I think it's important for us to at least have the conversations.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell, and I agree that there is going to be some tough decisions to be made in this budget. We are in uncertain times, and we need to seriously look at everything. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for all your thoughts. I'm sure that staff have been taking notes through the night, and lots of notes and lots of ideas have been floated around. I will now move to the confirmatory bylaw. I'll be looking for a mover and seconder that bylaw 144-2020 being a bylaw to confirm generously previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for Councillor Richardson to move that?
I will happily move that. Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell, would you second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
I will assume that everyone is in favor, unless you put it in the chat window that you are opposed. With nothing, that is carried. And now I'd be looking for a mover and a seconder that the council meeting adjourns to meeting again for general council business on Monday, October the 19th, 2020. Could I ask Councillor Seiler to move that?
I will move that. Thank you.
And Councillor Andreessen, would you second that?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Leanne. And with that, this meeting is now adjourned.